1977, George Lucas formed a legacy.
The Force is with me, and I am with the Force.
Inspired by mythology, his saga has become a passion for many.
Feel the Force around you.
His legend has become our story.
It's true. All
one of resistance.
we are the spark that'll light the fire that'll burn the First Order down.
Rebellion.
Rebellion is built on hope.
And redemption.
I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
This is Star Wars Reactions.
Remember, the Force will be with you, always.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome. Welcome to Star Wars Reactions. We got an awesome show for you today. It is the 87th episode, and we are going to be looking at the third part of the Obi-Wan Kenobi limited series. So let's not waste any time. Let's get the introductions out of the way so we can discuss this absolutely incredible episode. My name is Aaron Harris, and joining me is the Kanan to my Ezra, the David Motters. David, brother, how's it going?
It is going. I know that you and I were just so pumped to record earlier this week when we recorded an episode to cover parts 1 and 2, and now this is part 3, and I'm just as excited to record with you and ready to react, and just really looking forward to talking about this incredible episode, and I'm curious to hear what our listeners think of this episode. So I'm ready to react, ready to go, and let's do it, buddy.
Perfect. Well, let's not hesitate. This is part 3 of the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. This episode was released June 1st, 2022. How are we already in June, David?
Oh, half of 2022 is gone.
And half of the Kenobi series is gone.
Oh, I know.
It's like they planned it.
Right.
Anyway, released June 1st, 2022. This particular episode was written by Joby Harold, Hannah Friedman, Stuart Beatty, and Hossein Amini, whose name I probably butchered again, and I apologize. Directed, of course, by the ever-talented and ever-lovely Deborah Chow. In part 3, we open with Kenobi meditating while trying to contact his master through the Force, while the trauma and the realization of the survival of Anakin Skywalker lives fresh in his mind. Him and Leia on board their freighter arrive on the planet of Mapuzo, where they end up in what essentially bounds up to be a Jedi underground, almost like a underground train, underground railway, helping Jedi and Force-sensitive beings escape the Empire. Meanwhile, while making their escape, the struggle for power is in play among the Inquisitors after the fall of the Grand Inquisitor. Reva, who we believe has murdered him, is framing Kenobi for his death. They track the fugitives to Mapuzo, where they are joined by Lord Vader himself. Vader terrorizes the village until he finds Kenobi. They battle it out, but Vader has the upper hand in this fight. Unfortunately, thanks to the interference of members of the Underground, Kenobi escapes the clasps of Vader, but not before Reva finds Leia. Dun dun dun.
Thinking the same thing.
So that's the synopsis in a nutshell. So let's get into it. David, kick us off, brother. What were your initial reactions to this episode?
Well, I don't know if listeners know it, but, Aaron and I, type up our, show notes to give us guidance, and we know where we're going and stuff like this. the very first thing I typed in the show notes was, are they trying to give me a heart attack? I tell you, I'm always amazed at how filmmakers, these creatives, can generate, like, tension and worry, fear. When I know, Aaron and I know, and all the listeners here know, that the characters in harm's way will ultimately be okay, right? In this instance, Leia and Ben. But I'm still on the edge of my seat. And I'm like, geez, oh, Pete's, man, Deborah Chow and her crew, God, I tell you, Aaron, they're doing an incredible job of creating tension throughout the whole episode, and the music. And I watched it once without subtitles, watched it tonight before we recorded with subtitles. Even in the subtitles, they'll put dramatic music playing, and oh my gosh, it is playing and creating that tension and that worry. I really appreciated that I really enjoyed that over the course of the building tension over the entire episode, not just the beginning, but just the middle and the end. Of course, gosh, seeing Vader and Kenobi fight again, Vader versus Kenobi, was just incredible. In my head, I just found myself screaming for Kenobi's rush to wear off, and fast. I mean, for a lot of the beginning of that fight, Vader's got it with one hand, and Ben has got two hands on that lightsaber and is just struggling to just fend Vader off. So that was just, I mean, like I said, I guess Kathleen Kennedy was calling it rematch of the century. I don't know if that's going to be it. I think they're going to tangle again. But just incredible. Of course, Reva, having Leia makes me even more nervous, and they end the episode right there. And so what a cliffhanger, a la the Saturday morning serials that George Lucas grew up watching so many years ago. So thoroughly enjoyed it. I could talk for hours just in initial reactions, but let me bounce it over to Aaron and get his initial reactions.
Well, my initial reactions, David, I typed out, then I had to delete because they weren't family friendly, and retype. But I mean, holy burning Obi-Wan Batman. I mean, this was just wow. To be honest, when I was expecting the third episode, after the two we just had, I was expecting a little bit more of a slower pace. We know how these go. They have a history. They get the emotions up really high, then they bring you down a little bit. They bring you up really high, and then they bring you down. It's a roller coaster. And I was expecting that we had the really high emotion of starting the series, and I expected this to be the lower part so they could bring us right back up and then bring us back down and back up. But no, they kicked it up a notch, and I was not expecting that. They're absolutely incredible episode. I mean, there wasn't a moment in this episode I did not love. The whole Kenobi versus Vader match, completely unexpected this early in the series. We knew it was coming, but I did not expect it here. And I guarantee you this cannot be the last one. Or else the line from A New Hope doesn't make sense. When I last saw I was but a learner. Now I am the master. I mean, it makes no sense because he obviously schooled Kenobi in this fight. So definitely going to be another one in which Obi-Wan really takes it to him. But I mean, you talk about leaving someone speechless by the end of an episode. This did it. I mean, it's completely speechless by the end of my first watch of this episode. Simply incredible storytelling, and I absolutely adored it. Drop page. So Oh my gosh. So let's get into the story, and get over some of our talking points. Let's talk about, let's talk about the power struggle within the Inquisitors right now. I didn't even put this in the notes, but it kind of falls in under the first point in the note, which was to talk about Vader and Reva. But you can't talk about Vader and Reva without talking about the power struggle within the Inquisitors. We see that power struggle in full effect. As of right now, we still believe, they're still leading us to believe that the Grand Inquisitor is defunct, dead, 6 feet under, one with the dark side, however you want to word it.
Yeah.
Sith kebab, whatever it is. But he is. So we have Reva, who is pretty much wanting to take charge. We have the fifth brother, who is wanting to take charge because he is next in line. And the other sister's just kind of sitting there, kind of watching it, but then kind of flexes her muscle a little bit, and at there toward the middle of the episode, and it's creating an interesting dynamic, because even when they get to Mapuzo, and Vader's looking for Kenobi, and they're told to stand by, and she doesn't want to. Reva's ready, just raring and raving to go. And it's the brother that has to restrain her. Because remember, he said, we're not to interfere. We're to search for others and comb the city. So there's definitely a power struggle in there. Both want power. Obviously, it's dark side. So dark side is all about power. And we're seeing that power struggle there. What are your thoughts on our Inquisitorist struggles?
Well, as you're describing it, and as I watch it, something that I was thinking about, Aaron, was some of the documentaries my wife has watched recently on World War II, and specifically, Hitler and the Nazis. And if I remember correctly, and you tell me if I'm wrong, buddy, but I believe that it was, I think, pretty well known that Hitler had tried to, and not just Hitler, but I think a lot of these dictators try to keep their underlings at odds with each other, because then they're not as focused on taking you out, and you still can have control over them, And so that's, I do wonder, because as this played out, Aaron, we see Reva talking to Vader on Mustafar, which was incredible to see, by the way. Again, right, Rogue One. Excuse me. And then, to hear the fifth brother say later in the episode, I told Vader that, I don't know, the probes were sent out, or we're on our way, and all this kind of stuff. So clearly he contacted them. So I get the sense that Vader is doing what a lot of mean dictators do. It's keep playing them, try to get them to fight amongst themselves and try to please him. And it seems like, the film and TV is mimicking the real world. But it's cool to see, and I'm enjoying watching it play out.
Oh, absolutely. It's been very interesting to watch play out and see how it goes. And I want to see where it goes down the road, because if this is something they're setting Reva up for, because, all through the first episode, we had the Grand Inquisitor and we had the brother telling her that she needs to get in line. She's out of line. She is too, she's not... She basically is the oddball of the Inquisitors.
Right.
And it's, you usually don't want your oddball taking power at that point.
Right.
And then, of course, you have Vader, which you brought up, and I'm glad you did, talking to Reva via holograms from Mustafar, where he's basically telling her, you find me Kenobi and you'll be the next Grand Inquisitor.
Right.
And of course, her face kind of as much as an Inquisitor's face can, kind of lights up with that, because obviously that is what she wants. So
Yeah,
we're curious to see how this plays out, because Fifth Brother is also next, and if you go by seniority and rank, it'd be the Fifth Brother next in line, it appears.
and he says that.
And he even says that in the show. It's my seat. I'm next in line. So it'll be interesting to see how the power struggle comes to head, and if Vader has to step in and make the ultimate decision. I mean, we know Fifth Brother. We know Fifth Brother survives because he's in Rebels, but at the same point, we also expected the Grand Inquisitor to survive because he's in Rebels. So don't know how that's going to play out now. It's all up in the air. So, but it's interesting. Vader's meeting with Reva, David, when he's making it, that it was, and I don't know, I wanted somebody else's opinion, but hearing that conversation, to me, it felt like more like he was trying to manipulate her to get done what he wanted rather than making her a legit offer.
I completely agree. Yeah. I don't think he cares about the Grand Inquisitor, her, the Fifth Brother, any of the Inquisitorius, right? And clearly he's single-minded in his focus right now on getting Kenobi. We know he's also been focused on figuring out, after the Death Star blows up, that single-mindedness, trying to figure out, who that was. And we see that in comics and books and stuff like that. But yes, completely agree. And I have to say, I went back and watched the first episode with my wife and my daughter because they were wanting to watch it. And you and I talked last episode about Order 66 there at the beginning. Watching it again, and when you see the Jedi Master that's protecting them, when she's finally shot and goes to the ground and you see the younglings around her, you do clearly see a young African-American girl with braids, right there. And I don't know, I tell you, we can talk more about it, but I just feel like the layered performance of Moses Ingram as Reva, and I'm still staying focused on what you said in terms of this conversation between her and Vader. It's almost like he's manipulating her, but it also feels like she's got her angle too. They both have an angle, right? And is hers to get closer to him? Does she know that, Anakin killed younglings in there? Did she see that? I know I get too excited. I mean, I think we were too, buddy, right? And we're trying to hold back on the speculation, but this is exciting, man. This is, and like you said, we'll see how it plays out. But again, to answer your question, absolutely agree that Vader's manipulating her. At the same time, I feel like she has an angle too, based on going back, rewatching episodes, trying to piece this together. But again, I'm completely interested and can't wait for these next 3 episodes to see what plays out, my brother.
I completely agree. It's got a long way to go and a short time to get there.
That's right.
It's crazy. So let's move on from there. Let's talk about Obi-Wan, because Obi-Wan, throughout this episode, we see he's struggling. Matter of fact, the episode opens with him struggling. He's sitting on the freighter. He's trying to meditate. He's trying to commune with Qui-Gon, contact Qui-Gon. And yet, while he's trying to do that, the news that Reva gave him at the end of the last episode that Anakin's alive and hunting him is tormenting him. The fact that he's alive, the fact he's reliving the fight on Mustafar in his head again, reliving the slaughter of the younglings on the recording he saw. He's reliving it all in his head, and it's just tormenting him. And I love the final line of that scene before it cuts away, where he says, where his eyes open and he goes, "Master, he's coming. It's just, oh, I got chills. I just got chills saying that. But I mean, he is, you thought he was devastated at the end of episode 3 when he thought he had killed Anakin, but to find out Anakin is still alive and he is the most evil man in the galaxy is even more. I feel that's even more devastating for him based on how he's reacting. He doesn't know what to do, and he struggles throughout this episode with those emotions. Not just there on the ship, but even when we get to Mapuzo and he's cruising in the back of Freck's truck, hitching a ride with Leia. He's struggling. He can't keep his thoughts straight. He can't keep his story straight. He can't keep their secret identity straight. He's struggling. And we see that, and even manifests when he ends up having to fight Vader. That struggle manifests because you see him literally unable to properly wield his lightsaber. Essentially, he was wielding it like a youngling. So I wanted to get your thoughts, David, on Kenobi and the struggle we see him going through in this episode.
Yeah, I think that, last week we talked about, PTSD and or last episode covering parts 1 and part 2. And here's just, a brief psychology corner here right in the middle of the episode for our listeners. One of the things that I've noticed, and I worked with people today in my office who have been traumatized. Physically traumatized, getting hurt by others, etc. And I'll leave it at that. But what you see, Aaron, is, gosh, sometimes these events, the traumatization is something that doesn't last for, maybe more than a few minutes. Obviously his battle with Anakin on Mustafar and all of that, and obviously, taking, Luke to Tatooine and so on and so forth plays out over time. But, what I have noticed is that no matter how long or short the trauma is, in terms of occurrence, it just really sticks around for a long time. Another big one, Aaron, and I've talked about it before on the show, is Vietnam vets. For a long time, a lot of those guys are passing away. But in my work with them, they were in the Vietnam War. What years? Late 60s to, early 70s. I believe the Vietnam War ended about 74 or 75. And here I am talking to these guys, years and years and years later. So again, this is all consistent, with what they're showing with Kenobi, that it affects us. It affects us cognitively. It affects us physically. And we're seeing that in Ewan McGregor's performance. I think it's just, outstanding. And so, I'm so glad you brought it up, and it allows me to jump in and talk a little bit about that, but just the ways in which it affects you cognitively, emotionally, relationally, right? We know he's been just generally just sticking to himself. But yeah, I just, and I'll talk about it a little bit later in the contrast between Vader and Kenobi, but, when there's evil people, mean people, and they hurt others, whether it's children, adolescents, or adults, the problem is just how long that stuff sticks around. And so they show it very well in this episode.
Oh, they definitely do. One scene too that really shook Ben, and I think really led to his mess ups with their secret identities, was when they were walking on Mapuzo before they encounter Freck in his truck. Is he looks off in the distance and he's visualizing Anakin standing over on a hill, turning and looking at him. And it's crazy what is being how that affects him there.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, and notice what Deborah Chow did with the camera, or the DP, right? The director of photography, um, kind of comes in on Ewan McGregor's face. Camera's tilted. There's a little bit of the slowing down. That's trying to bring some similarity to when I think about people having panic attacks. There are those feelings of derealization, depersonalization,
Yeah.
and so there you go. They showed it pretty well.
Very well, very well. And it's, I don't know. I just cannot wait to see where we're going in this. I mean, he's got a lot of trauma to work through. And of course, now that now with the way it ended, we know he's going to, was it Jabrim, the name of the planet? Where they're stealing all the Jedi to?
Jabim, Jabim. I believe that's the. Okay. Yeah, and apparently that has been part of in Dark Horse comics, and I don't know. I think Wikipedia has some stuff on it, but yeah, okay. That's a planet that's been on for a while. So
okay. Yeah. So we know he's being rescued, and I think, it's just my opinion. This encounter here with Vader and the struggles he has there, I think that's what pushes him into further communion in the Force.
I agree.
And that's what's going to revitalize. And in order to really go into further detail, we have to go into another talking point, which I'm going to skip a couple to jump into this talking point so I can continue this line of thought. Because we have that Jedi, essentially underground railroad, channeling Force sensitive people and fugitive Jedi away from the Empire, and eventually leading him to Jabim. And when when Obi-Wan gets to this quote unquote safe house, we end up finding out that, Jedi and other people have inscribed their names on the walls as they've gone through. And he realizes and recognizes that Quinlan Vos has passed through. And we find out Quinlan Vos is alive and that he has been assisting with the protection of younglings and rescuing younglings through this time period. So of course, with the fight ending in Kenobi, I mean, he's hurt. We'll talk about the fight in a minute. But with Kenobi being hurt, now him being rushed to Jabim for safety, will we get, I want to see Quinlan.
Yes. Have you heard like kind of the scuttlebutt? Some people are speculating that that Ned B, that droid, that Quinlan might be inside there. I don't know. I thought that was interesting.
That's a new one. I know I missed that one.
Yeah, I was kind of going back and forth on that. Kind of like when we first see him and Leia's talking to him and she has Lola say hi to him, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know. He's looking around, doesn't say anything. I feel like he would have said hi to Obi-Wan there. So I guess I'm leaning on no, it's probably not.
Yeah. But this is, and that being that now that we know Quinlan Vos is alive, I'm thinking it's especially with what he wrote on the wall in that safe house. Mm-hmm. Only when the eyes are closed can you truly see. The depth in that statement is simply Quinlan. I mean, if you've read Dark Disciple, if you've watched the Clone Wars, the episodes that have him in it, that's perfect Quinlan Vos. And if anybody is able to get Obi-Wan Kenobi back in the game and snap him back into reality, it will be Quinlan Vos. I don't even think Yoda could do it. If they brought Yoda, I don't think Yoda could do it, but I think Quinlan Vos is somebody who is so out of the box enough could get Obi-Wan's head back on straight and get him back into a fighting stance that we have not seen in this series yet.
You bring up an interesting point. Yeah, like with the effect of Qui-Gon Jinn on him, and here's Boss. Yeah, I love that. I love that was on there. I love that we hear Obi-Wan say that. I was trying to remember. Is it in the Clone Wars animated series or in Revenge of the Sith where Ewan McGregor, maybe it's Ewan McGregor, it'd be Revenge of the Sith, it'd be James Arnold Taylor speaking it in the Clone Wars, that Quinlan Voss is on like Boss Pity or something like that. Do you remember, buddy?
I can't remember where that was said. I remember the statement, but I can't for the life of me remember where from.
I'm trying to pull from my memory bank so many episodes of so many shows. But yeah, and I loved him in those episodes of Clone Wars, and him. I remember that fight. Doesn't him and Obi-Wan have with Cad Bane? And so yes, I think you make a good point that I guess as you were speaking, I was thinking about, here's something from Quinlan. Here's this person named Tala who is a double agent betraying the Empire, which I love to see. You and I start, the Rebels animated series shows these cells coming together. Rogue One, we see it. We'll
see it in Andor.
Right. And we're seeing people, good people, trying to do the right things. And I liked how Tala said, many people have come through here. We've got a group of people here that are trying to do the right thing, trying to help others, and talk about give you hope when the Empire is trying to destroy everything. So that was really cool, that scene, and knowing that Quinlan's out there helping.
Oh yeah, it is. It's refreshing, and it's nice to know that, because that was one thing that came up when this is something that came up when Rebels first premiered, was, where are all these Jedi coming from? They were all wiped out. There were only supposed to be Luke and Obi-Wan and Yoda left. Where are all these other Jedi coming from? But now that we're seeing the establishment of this essentially Jedi Underground Railroad, rescuing these Jedi, rescuing these people, these Force sensitives, it's answering those questions of how is this possible? I mean, because obviously, the breadth of the size of the galaxy, so there were going to be more. Mathematically, there would be more that survived than just those three, but now we're getting to see them, and we're getting to see how they survived.
Yeah. Well, and plus, was it Nari in the first episode? He was the Jedi on Tatooine. He ends up getting killed by the Inquisitors, but he was the one who survived. Yeah.
So it's very interesting to see the whole thing play out. So it'll be fun. I'll say this wholeheartedly. I really hope we see Quinlan Voss. Yes. And I'm not going to be disappointed if we don't, but I would be super excited if we did. So
yeah,
leave it at that.
Yeah. So, well, we saw a glimpse of him in the Phantom Menace. So
that we did.
Jessica, yeah.
That we did. All right. So we are going to take just a very brief break. But when we return, we're going to keep talking about part 3 of Obi-Wan Kenobi, because we had a lot more great stuff to talk about, including that big fight there at the end of this episode. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. Aaron and David here, and we are talking part 3 of Obi-Wan Kenobi. Hello there. So let's keep going. And one of the big things in this episode, there's a lot of big things in this episode that is that happened and is going on. But that includes, besides him struggling with Obi-Wan struggles with Anakin and the Inquisitor struggles, but we have a lot of growth and a lot of exploration of the relationship between Leia and Ben, as she's calling him. And I'm going to say it again because I feel it needs to be said. The young lady playing Leia, I mean, she has won me over. I mean, wholeheartedly.
Oh yeah.
I mean, she is just, to me, she's perfect. I mean, she has that young. She's got this character nailed to a T at such a young age, and I love it. I love it. And she's so inquisitive, and she's a kid, that's how we envision our kid. As I got 2 kids, David, you got 2, and we know how inquisitive minds are at that age. And she's asking those questions, and it's really almost challenging Obi-Wan. And I love that we're seeing, not necessarily a father-daughter relationship playing out, but it's a very unique relationship. Almost, I mean, more of feels more of a guardian angel type situation. He's guarding over her. But questions she asks, like, what's the Force like? And which triggers a very interesting conversation where he's like, how it feels when it's all dark and you turn the light on, how you feel? She goes, yeah, I feel good. And I'm like, well, that's kind of what it's like. A very simple, very plain description for a child. Then he hands her Lola that he fixed, and she's all excited about that and forgets about the questions she was asking. But then she shows tremendous strength for Obi-Wan when he needs it, as he's struggling with his mental struggles with Anakin and dealing with his failures and everything in his head. You have her stepping up to cover for him, like when she runs up to the truck and she's talking to Freck. You're like, hi, I'm Loma, and this is my father, Odin.
Yeah.
We're from Tal. We're farmers. We need a ride home. Can you help us? We're lost. But it's really interesting, because how she just plays. She steps up when he needs it, but falls in line when she needs to. And I think probably the most touching part is after the stormtroopers disembark, they pick up some stormtroopers in Freck's truck, and there's this slip up that I mentioned earlier where he calls Leia instead of Loma. He calls her Leia, and the stormtroopers pick up immediately and go on alert. You called her Leia. I thought her name was Luma. And she's like, and he's like, well, that was her mother's name. And I get, sometimes when I look, and he just looks at her, and you can see him just getting lost in his thoughts as he's looking at her. He's like, it's difficult because when I look at her, I see her mother. And sometimes I just forget because it's so hard. And it created a moment enough that when the stormtroopers left, she looked at him and goes, you knew my mother. She could tell. Then asked questions. Then she turns around and looks at him and goes, are you my father? Are you my real father? And my youngest came out of foster care. And does not know her real father. And it's one of those things as a foster parent. I mean, I can understand. I can sympathize with Obi-Wan in those shoes. He looks at her, he goes, no. He's like, it looks at her, he's like, I wish I was, but I'm not. I wish I could say I was, but I'm not. but does not admit that he knows her father, or that her father's alive, or where her father is, or any of that. Doesn't even admit to knowing her mother. But Leia knows, and even tells him, I know you're I know you're holding something back. I know you've been lying to me about something. And she's got Leia's intelligence already at that young age. And I love that. Yeah. And not to mention, and I got to ask you, David, her whole little wardrobe in this episode, the green vest, the bun. Tell me she is not the spitted image of Carrie Fisher in Return of the Jedi on Endor.
Oh yeah, all we need is a speeder bike and an Ewok on there, and here we go.
Thank you.
We're good to go.
Thank you. All right. Yeah. Talk to me, David. What are your thoughts on the way they're playing Kenobi and Leia's relationship in this?
Yeah. So, we've heard George Lucas in lots of documentaries on, the prequels and obviously the original trilogy and stuff like that, talk about, what do they call it? The dialogue, the exposition, right? And how, these directors, not just George Lucas, but all of them, trying to balance the story and conveying the story and the details in exposition, and then having action. And what I was going to say, just simply, and you did such a nice job of describing, these interactions between them. What I was thinking as I was watching it for the second time tonight, just before you and I jumped on, was just how much I am loving these quiet moments between Leia and Ben. And, because of how good both actors are, they're incredible. Yeah. And I love it. I love these interactions, and not just when, I guess both, like one when they're on the ship and he is explaining the Force, but also that quiet moment, even though there's stormtroopers there, having that conversation, but then of course they get off and it continues that quiet conversation. I'm really appreciating them, and it's not, exposition that is going to bore people to tears. In fact, Obi-Wan does a big bombshell drop that he seems to remember having a younger brother, and we'd never, I don't think, ever heard that before. So that was like, whoa. And but yeah, I'm loving the interactions between them. And gosh, going into this, I thought this would be mostly, Obi-Wan on Tatooine, keeping an eye on Luke, but it makes sense that they're off-world and keeping things pretty chill for Luke on Tatooine. But I really am loving these interactions, and the exposition is needed and enjoyable, and not bogging the story down.
Exactly, and I'm glad you brought up his. Or Obi-Wan talking to Leia about his memories, his flashes of memories of his family. How he just calls it a flash, bits and pieces. He remembers his mother Shaw, his dad's hand. He remembers a baby. He thinks he had a brother, and it kind of reminded me of Luke having that conversation with Leia on Endor. Tell me what you remember of your mother, your real mother. Yeah. And she's like, it's just flashes, really. I remember her being beautiful, but very sad. It's just little things like that just, it mirrors itself. And I love it. Yeah. I love it. It just, to me, just draws more connections and more unity throughout the saga.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yes, and I was thinking about that scene in Return of the Jedi as well, between Luke and Leia. Very, very well said.
All right, very. So really, the only thing left to talk about now is probably the biggest thing to come out of this episode, and that is the end credits. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. No, we can't end this episode without talking about Vader versus Kenobi.
Yes.
So, well, let's run through the scenario for you. Run through a brief synopsis of it for you. So, Tala and of course Leia and Obi-Wan are ready to make their escape through their secret tunnel to the spaceport to make their escape because they know the city's on lockdown and the Empire's looking for them. So as they're getting ready to leave and enter the tunnel, Obi-Wan just freezes and gets this terrified look on his face.
Mm-hmm.
And he rushes to the door, out of the safe room, back into the droid shop, and looks out the door. And around the corner walks Vader.
Mm-hmm.
And Anakin and Obi-Wan just knows. He's never seen this costume. He's never seen the outfit, but he knows who he's looking at. He feels it in the Force, and he is absolutely, you could tell he is absolutely mortified at what he sees.
Yeah.
And Anakin, this and the Vader we see is not, we always heard, this is one of those things where you've always heard Vader's the biggest bad guy in the galaxy. He's the worst. He's so evil. And we don't see a lot of that in the original trilogy. And we really don't, we got a glimpse of it at the end of Rogue One.
Mm-hmm.
But in this episode, we got to see ultimate evil just pouring out of Vader as he literally walks down the street, and he is literally just pulling people through windows and snapping their necks and choking them out. He even drags one of them down the street behind him, screaming for help, trying to lure Obi-Wan out into the open. He doesn't care who he hurts. He does not care who he kills or what he has to do, as long as Obi-Wan is standing in front of him. And we find out Vader has Vader not has issues. Of course he has issues, but we discover he's holding a grudge. He's holding a major grudge because when he finally catches Obi-Wan, he puts him through the ringer. Mm-hmm. We see that when Obi-Wan first sees him and they first come face to face, Obi-Wan, instead of facing him and fighting, he turns and runs. And Vader pursues him and keeps calling through the darkness, "You cannot hide. I will find you." Yeah. And then just out of the blue, all of a sudden this lightsaber comes swinging in, and we see Obi-Wan trying to defend himself. But Obi-Wan can't. He is so thrown off by his mental anguish, by his struggles, by his fear, that he is literally schooled by Vader in this fight. He can't land a blow. He can't defend himself. He's lucky Vader didn't cut him in half.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens? He ends up running again. When he gets enough separation, he ends up running. And he runs away until he is essentially trapped in a canyon. He's trapped. There's nowhere for him to go. And Vader dumps this ore onto the field in front of him, uses the Force to choke Obi-Wan and lift him up in the air. And while he's suspended there in the air, Vader uses his lightsaber and ignites the ore, which turns into a giant pit of fire, reminiscent of the molten lava flows of Mustafar. And then he just drops Obi-Wan into it and begins to drag him through the fire, telling him now he will suffer and feel pain. You talk about the most chilling evilness to come out. You know, you always heard Vader was the most evil one. Then you got Palpatine, and everybody after the prequels and everything, after sequels, okay, yeah, Palpatine's the most evil. No, this put him more evil than anything Palpy would have done.
Palpy. Sheev Palpy.
Palpy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's incredible. As I'm watching this, not only as he comes down the path there, the street, in that village, but then also out. I thought it was kind of neat. It was very, on this, obviously the Empire is strip mined this planet, and we've seen that in a number of novels. Even the Ahsoka novel, by E.K. Johnston and Ashley Eckstein did the audio version of it. They're on planets that are strip mined. I thought it was neat because the area where Vader and Kenobi are it's kind of stark. It's dark. It's not all the bright colors of the molten lava of Mustafar, but it really emphasizes the blue and red of their sabers, and it's just incredible and eerie. But I'm just getting these vibes of Michael Myers as he does walk down that village street, but also when he's standing there by the fire when Tala reignited it, and he's just standing there staring over it. Just boogeyman, Michael Meyer, just right. Michael Meyer was called The Shape. Just scary, and it really is when you hear, just watching it a second time with the subtitles, just like Aaron had mentioned, they're on the ship before they land on the planet, and you look and Ewan McGregor's mouth isn't moving, but you can hear his voice saying, "Master, he's coming." And again, the boogeyman, the scariest guy on the planet in the universe is coming, and it was just incredibly well done. And again, like Aaron said, besides Rogue One, here we see Vader in his prime, just or getting close to his prime, I think here, right? Just incredibly evil and willing to do whatever it takes to get Obi-Wan to show himself. Remember that scene, Aaron, when you see Obi-Wan on the side of that building staring at Vader, and then all of a sudden Vader's head turns to the left, and I'm like, oh my gosh, she's gonna see Ben, and then Ben was gone. I was like, oh, it was so well done, kudos to like I said, Deborah Chow and the whole crew. They made Vader scary, and what we expect from Vader.
Absolutely. Very scary. And it also brought up the whole fight, and especially there at the end when the ore gets reignited, separating Kenobi from Vader and the stormtroopers. It got me thinking. I want to ask you this to get your opinion, knowing we don't have a lot to go off of, but Obi-Wan or Vader, aka Anakin, is more man now than machine. His legs are machine. His arms are machine.
Yeah.
If he really wanted Kenobi, he could have walked through that fire undamaged.
I've heard that.
And
I've heard another point. Have you heard the other one?
No, I haven't. But
if he put out the fire the first time for the stormtrooper to go get him, why didn't he put out the next one? Now, it was a much bigger fire.
Yes,
Okay.
It was a much bigger fire because she didn't shoot the ore on the ground. She shot the container, and the container exploded. So it is a much bigger fire. But I don't think that would have stopped him from putting it out. Do you think? And I'm asking. This is the question I wanted to ask you. Do you think, because of what happened to Anakin on Mustafar, at the hands of Kenobi, when he got lost his arms and his legs, when he is literally lying there on the bank of the lava flow, and he ends up catching fire and he burns to the point that Obi-Wan assumes he's dead. Do you think that Vader, aka Anakin, actually has a fear of the fire?
That's interesting. Oh, now, man, look at you going all
because he
deep.
freezes. He doesn't move. He freezes and he watches. He does not move his head. He does not move his body. He is like he's frozen.
That's interesting.
Whether it's frozen in fear, frozen in, I mean, if he was angry, he'd have done something. But it appeared as if he was frozen in fear of what lied ahead because of what happened in the past.
Well, now you got me thinking about something. Was it the Emperor who told Vader, was it that, or was it Vader himself, to build his, what is it, Vader's castle on Mustafar? Did Vader want to do that to himself, or did the Emperor do that as just kind of one more sign of, hey, you need to stay here. I want you to constantly be reminded of how you got defeated and what happened with Obi-Wan. I want you to be more and more angry. I want you to focus that anger. I can't remember because I'd
have to go back to the Vader comics for that. And I want to say it was Vader's choice, but he had to get permission from
the Emperor.
From the Emperor. It's been a long time since I read those comics. I read them when they first came out. But I do, if I remember correctly, he was actually led there by this mask that he found in the vaults underneath the Jedi temple.
Yes.
And it led him there. And then he had visions of Padme, and he had visions of everything. And then it was at some dark force, dark side, kind of like the cave on Dagobah type thing. And he built his castle on top of that.
Right.
So I believe it was Vader's choice.
Okay. Because there's where, again, it's one thing to have a castle and be above the lava. Like you said, when you're there and there's fire right in front of you, it could be the case that, he's fine with being in his bacta tank in the castle above lava, but maybe, direct fire is. It's a hard one. I don't know. That's why I brought up the whole issue of his castle and being by molten lava all the time. And I don't know. I guess it's, again, one thing to be in a castle. It's another thing to have, massive flames in front of you,
Yeah, well, and it's also one thing to sit there and face your fear day after day in a safe environment.
Right.
Safe, controlled environment. It's another thing to face your fear in real life where the danger is real.
Right. It's right there. Yeah.
It's right there. I mean, it's just, there's no getting around it. So
I like what you're saying.
So it makes me wonder if the fire triggered almost I would even I mean, we don't have enough evidence or anything for it, but even a little bit of PTSD to his fire, to his burning on Mustafar, because he did not move until he knew Kenobi. I mean, he sat there and froze and did not move. He sees the lift loader droid pick up Kenobi and walk away. And he did nothing to stop it. He did not progress. He didn't take a step toward the fire. And until he knew Kenobi was gone, he did not do anything. He did not move. And then when he did move, he turned and walked away. It was over.
Oh boy, man. I'm feeling you. I like it. And it really makes sense, and it fits with what we saw.
So,
Sure.
Just curious. Wanted to get your thoughts on that. So,
Yeah.
because it was,
Well,
it's something that struck me as odd, him just standing there. And it's not something I caught the first time I watched it. I caught it the second time I watched it, and then I rewatched it. Rewatched that scene again, and I'm like, no, he doesn't move at all.
very good point. Well, think about it. And again, going back, you and I are talking from a psychological perspective. Absolutely traumatized, losing limbs, being operated on, encased in a black shell now, and so completely traumatized. And same thing for Obi-Wan. War is hell. They were in it and battling each other, and so both are traumatized. So, yeah, absolutely, you could see Obi-Wan having some panic responses, and perhaps we'll get some of that insight as well. Maybe not. I don't know. I could see Dave Filoni sitting down and explaining exactly what you said. We really wanted Vader or Deborah Chow to not go after Kenobi there because he's having his own sort of panic attack, some form inside of that armor. Yeah.
Very good. Perfect. Any other points you wanted to hit on before we start wrapping things up, David?
One little point consistent with what you said about, and now looking at that, I'm running the scene through, like you said. Notice that Vader just stands there and doesn't move, doesn't go through the fire, doesn't throw his lightsaber over there, doesn't force pull. He just stands there. Here's another one. Watching it a second time tonight, it's very quick, but watch when they cut to Reva's face when Vader's going down the path there in the village, pulls the dad out, the son comes out, shoves the son against the wall, and then breaks the son's neck. They cut to Reva. Just check out her response. I'd encourage people to check out her response. Is she responding in a way that she has seen stuff like this before in the Jedi Temple? Just throwing it out there, brother.
Okay, now you got me rewinding the episode to take that peek.
I want our listeners to do the same thing. Take a look. Very quick. Deborah Chow cuts there, or the editor, they cut there really quick. And I don't know what to quite make, but it almost looks like, even though she lopped off a hand in the first episode, right, of that woman in the marketplace, and even though she went to, swing and cut that Jedi's arm, in the first episode, I think the Grand Inquisitor stops her from doing it. You can see it's almost like she winces when she sees Vader doing these things. I just throw it out there, and I think it's another layer of Moses Ingram's performance as Reva.
Yeah, you're right. She is. It looks like it initiates a trauma in her. Seeing that. That's, oh man. Oh man, good catch, my friend. Good catch.
This is why people listen to Star Wars reactions. Okay.
I hope so. I mean, we have fun, and that's a good catch, my friend. Wow, I like that.
Just watching second time tonight, I was like, wait, what? Again, subtitles on, looking at everybody's faces, trying to read, trying to take it all in. Yeah. So that's my last thing I want to say in our talking points. Yeah.
Very good. Well, with that, we're going to go into our final thoughts. And I'll go ahead and kick it off since you opened up with our initial reactions. I'll kick off our final thoughts. For me, man, what is there to say except this is, I have to say, this is one of the best hours of Star Wars we have ever been gifted. Period, hands down. The struggles that Kenobi is facing with the loss of the Jedi and his failures with Anakin are so excellently played out, and the emotions are so raw in this episode. His emotions with facing Vader and seeing Vader. His emotions when he's dealing with Leia. It's just raw emotion that Ewan McGregor is putting on screen, and it's moving. I mean, and when he fought Vader, those emotions came through. He truly was more of the Padawan than the master in this fight. And despite the fact that this series has so far murdered the first season of Rebels, which I still hope they will fix, I can't get enough of this series. I love it. And I really hate, we've gotten 3 episodes in like 5 days. I hate to wait. I hate the fact we got to wait a week to get another episode. So, but yeah, I love it. It's perfect. I'm 99.999% perfect. So I'm loving it.
Yeah.
I'm loving it. David, final thoughts.
Yes. Yeah. What an incredible episode. Unbelievable. You and I know this, Aaron, and people listen and know this, that, fans of Star Wars have wanted to, see Vader in his prime, and kicking butt and going all Vader-esque on people, for many years. And really, we all got that in, 2016 when, Rogue One premiered in theaters. What an incredible scene there at the end. Just incredible. Blocking laser bolts, pinning guys to the ceiling, cutting them in half, just mowing people down. It's just incredible. And I would say this here is maybe perhaps the most violent we see Vader next to Rogue, maybe equivalent, cutting the guy in half. And in this one, Vader pulling people out of homes, dragging them down the street, breaking necks. It's wow, and I would say this, though, for me, I think about things like this, particularly with, what we've been seeing in the world. And, Aaron and I have, covered, sociopathy, psychopathy in my psychology corner and so on and so forth. But I would say this, that, what they show in terms of Vader's violence, it's really in contrast to Obi-Wan's empathy and concern for others. I think it plays out really well. And for me, it just really emphasizes the contrast between good and evil. I appreciate that contrast in a world that has basically tried to blur the line between right and wrong, good and evil. And, I remember, like, I remember sitting in the movie theater in 1977 and you see Vader walk in, after that door is blasted open, and the stormtroopers have taken control of the Tantive 4 or Tantive 4. Everybody knows who the bad guy is. Yeah, right there, Vader. And Leia comes out in her white dress, and we know she's the good guy. We know Luke is, Obi-Wan. And there's no George Lucas didn't leave it to chance. Oh, who are the good guys? Who are the bad guys? And here, once again, Deborah Chow and the writers really just show that contrast. And, I know who's bad as he's walking down the street of that village. And when he's, pulling Obi-Wan into burning hot coals, we know who is. And so, I really appreciated that. And just, I love that battle between good and evil. I also want to mention this in final thoughts is, when she's showing some, I think, maybe Aaron, you might, I don't know, our listeners too, I think she's, showing some force sensitivity while running in that tunnel. That is, get a sense that she senses that Obi-Wan's in trouble, and she even says to Tala, please help him. He needs help, and please rescue him. Please bring him back. And again, fortunately, Tala goes to help Obi-Wan. So does Ned B, that loader droid. And boy, talking about saving Obi-Wan's bacon, holy crow, just by the skin of his teeth. And I love that. And of course, they end this, like I mentioned earlier, with in my initial initial reactions, we end with Leia being taken. Now, one thing, I watched it again tonight, but does the guy's eyes open there at the end, right? The guy who's been hit or knocked down by Reva, the pilot. I don't know. I've watched it a second time. It looks like his eyes just kind of come open. And again, I don't know if he's a pilot. Is he a Jedi? Who is that? And but I notice his eyes just open a little bit as Reva is taking Leia away. Again, like Aaron said, I can't wait a week for this, but I have to.
Very good, very good. And I thought his eyes were just always open because he had died and his eyes were open. I didn't notice them opening.
Yeah.
But the way the episode ends, Reva found Leia, but she hadn't caught her yet.
Oh, she was running.
She took off running down the tunnel, and Reva, when it cut, Reva had yet to move down the tunnel to get her. So you're left with the impression she's caught. But as of the cut, which I expect her to be caught, but as of the cut, she wasn't captured as of yet. Good point.
So, thank you for the help there. Yeah.
No problem. Perfect final thoughts. I love it. So, of course, we grade our episodes that we review. Just like if you were getting a grade in school, we grade the episodes with an A, B, C, D, and or F. I don't know why I said and or, because you can't get an A and an F on the same time. Carabast. Grab my hat, put it back on, my Carabast hat. But we grade the episodes, and there's just no way. I when it comes to grading, we try to be as neutral, I guess is a way to say it, as possible when grading these from a not emotional standpoint. Try to grade it as intellectually as possible. But I'm sorry, it's dang near impossible to grade this episode without incorporating emotions, because it was just such an emotional episode, which is probably why I gave this episode an A+. It was oh my gosh. It was, like I said, probably the best hour of Star Wars we've gotten. David, how did you grade her?
Yeah, A+ as well. Again, longtime listeners of our shows, from Rebels reactions to Resistance reactions, right, and now Star Wars reactions. For me, my longtime thing was Twilight of the Apprentice, which is still to me just incredible. A+. I give this one an A+. The way that they had Vader, the way they portrayed him, his evilness, his power, the acting by Ewan McGregor, and of course, I should have her name. I think it's Vivian. I don't know. I got to look again. Please forgive me. Little tiny Princess Leia actress. She's so good. That and the tension building throughout, getting to see Obi-Wan and Vader and another lightsaber battle. I just don't know how be intellectually honest and give it anything less than an A+. A minus, B. No, there's no way.
And it's Vivian Lyra Blair.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
There she is.
Perfect. So we want to know what you thought of this episode and how would you grade it? You can always, of course, hit us up on any of our social media pages, Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest at SW Reactions, or of course Twitter at SW Reactions Pod, or email us show@StarWarsReactions.com. If you want to talk Star Wars with me, the best way to do that is on Twitter at TAHarris121079, or email me, Aaron, at Aaron at StarWarsReactions.com. Carabast, I almost messed that up. David, how if somebody wanted to talk Star Wars with you, how would they do that, sir?
Yeah, Twitter at David_Modders, Modders. Instagram, just look up my name, David Modders. And then, like Aaron mentioned with his name, for me, it is David at StarWarsReactions.com.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know we got no Psychology Corner this week, but we got to end the show the same way we always do, my friend.
That's right.
We got to end it with our dad joke of the week. So I got a question for you, David. Are you ready?
You know I'm ready. Born ready.
Star Wars dad joke of the week. What did Obi-Wan say the first time he saw Darth Vader?
I don't know. What did Obi-Wan say the first time he saw Darth Vader?
Nice suit. That must have cost you an arm and a leg. My bad.
Oh, that's the costume. That is awesome. That's not a bad joke. That's a good joke.
Hey, there we go. Hey, I got a good one. That must have cost you an arm and a leg. Ooh, my bad.
That is perfect for this episode.
I thought so. I couldn't let that one slide.
Wow.
So, all right. Well, David, my friend, this has been fun as always, brother.
Oh my gosh. I know this our last episode and this one, these are so easy to record, so much to cover, so much more we could talk about. But again, hopefully the listeners enjoyed it. Hopefully they're enjoying the series. And of course, always love to record with you, brother.
Same here, my friend. Same here. And we want to thank each and every one of you for listening. Y'all are the best fans, best listeners out there. We love y'all. We pray for y'all. We wish y'all the best. Be kind to one another. It just makes the world so much better. And we all could use that a lot right now. So be kind. Let someone know you care about them, and just show love to everybody. Make the world a better place, my friends. Remember, this is your place for elegant discussion for a more civilized age.
If you'd like to share your thoughts, you can email us at show@starwarsreactions.com for our show notes and the latest news from the Star Wars universe. Visit our website at www.starwarsreactions.com. You can also follow us on Twitter at SWReactionsPod or on Facebook at Star Wars Reactions. If you enjoy our show, please leave a review on iTunes. This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company or by Lucasfilm Limited. It's intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars. All names, sounds, and any other Star Wars related items are registered trademarks and or copyrights of Disney and the respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Star Wars Reactions unless otherwise indicated. Star Wars Reactions. Elegant discussion for a more civilized age.